Hello everybody and welcome to this tutorial. Today we are going to be working on some ideas on how to make skulls in Minecraft. So let's go ahead and get started. To start off with skulls, I like to use World Edit to start with the sphere. So here we're typing in the command hsphere smooth quartz 5 to get started off with it. From there we're going to take our smooth quartz stairs, and smooth quartz slabs to work on shaping the skull. In this case, we're going to start by clearing out a bit of the sphere to make room for where the actual mouth of the skull will be. From there, we're going to start on the side and start elongating it to get the shape that you want. And this could be any shape you really want. You could even make the sphere bigger if you're looking for a bigger skull. But you want to start by making it pointy in this case because we're going to go for more of a dragon-esque type skull here. So we make it longer, and then we come up to the top side and we start to kind of mirror that, while also adding a little bit of roundness to it so that we can actually start to mold teeth in the future. So then what you'll see me continue to do here is just really work on that shape of kind of a curve area for the opening of the mouth portion. We got to make it also point up a little bit so that we have space for when we start to put in the nostril. This can take a lot of work to really figure out exactly the way you want to look at it, so I suggest that you really just keep going and try different things, figure out what you like to look at, what looks good, what doesn't, and experiment with it a little bit. Here we're also making sure that we go to the middle of our sphere so that later when we use World Edit to flip it, we flip it perfectly and not have weird gaps that we have to fill in. Next, we're going to move back into this center space to clean it up a little bit more. Which will help in the future for designing the inside part of it. Now we're going to start working on that nostril area. We got to make it a little bit more pointy there so we can actually make it work. From there we're going to start on adding some slabs and stairs because that will really help with the smoothness of the skull and give it that flow. So I suggest putting those in, really trying out to smooth it out and experiment with that as well. From there, we're going to just keep tweaking this little bit by little bit. It takes a lot of stepping back, looking at it, checking things to really emphasize how the skull works. The next thing you're going to want to do is start working on expanding the sides a little bit so that you have space for where the eye would go. And I got a little bit distracted here and ended up working again on that nostril because it just looked weird at that point, and that's where you gotta keep going back and forth between different pieces to get the shape you're looking for, get that curve that I mentioned earlier, as well as that smoothness that you're looking for, so that when you put in all the other pieces, you really get an idea for what you're making, instead of just having all these weird things. Right here, this is the part where we make the nostril. So you leave that little hole there, relatively thin hole, so mostly using slabs there to make that, and then a little bit more smoothing now that we have that initial nostril built in. From there, I just realized that I want the mouth hole opening space to be a bit more different, a bit tighter, because that's more the kind of look I'm going for this skull. At this point, I think about how I want the teeth to kind of go in. I haven't put them in yet, and I'm not going to, but I just needed to put a little bit of thought into that with that shaping. Then we go back to working on the eye and trying to figure out how to get that shape to look right. You kind of want it to be slightly angled. You don't want it perfectly straight, especially for creature and animal skulls. And you want it to kind of come up and out from the rest of the skull. Then from there, you also need it to kind of flow down smoothly as well into where the nostril is. So that's where you have that little angle there. And then again, it comes down to smoothing it out, getting those slabs and stairs in, and connecting it into that sphere and getting that smoothness, because the skulls generally don't have those weird bumps. Some do, and that's where if you want to use a photo for inspiration, that's highly recommended if there's a specific kind of skull you're going for. To make that work. Then we work just a little bit more on getting the middle part smoothed out so that we can copy and paste it smoothly. And then we're just going to continue working on smoothing out some of the other aspects so we can make sure when we copy it, we don't have to do too much finagling to make it work. So we're smoothing out a little bit more at the top, a little bit around the eye here to make that work out, and a little bit more around in this back area, just to make sure that we like how it looks before we copy it over to the other side. That includes making the eye hole a little bit more rounded, a little bit more shaped, with slabs and stairs, and then making sure that it actually digs into the skull a bit more. Then we do a little bit more work on figuring out how that works, and now we are ready to copy it over to the other side. So if you're using World Edit, you'll want to get your wand and set your first position at the bottom of your skull here, in roughly that area as you see me build out there, and then your second position in the opposite corner around where I am now, and then we'll move to the center row, do / copy, face the direction we want to flip, type / flip me, and then / paste. From there, we're back to tweaking. Specifically now in the back area, we're going to want to clear out the rest of the back of that sphere so that we can start to shape the backside of the skull, including the spine, as well as some of the other details that we're going to be including. Some of those things we might be doing, like horns, I'm thinking, as well as just some spines, which you kind of see me making here now. We're making those spines as well as the top of the skull, which you want to keep relatively flat, but also want to have some roundness. So that's where I recommend really going in with the slabs. Although here I start struggling quite a bit. For some reason, stuff wasn't lining up, and I could not see why, and so it took me a really long time to get that center back in. But with a bit of work, I finally figured out what I was missing and got back on track there. And then we just continue working on adding some little extra details, like these spines that you see me making, which aren't required. They help to give a little bit more shape, a little bit more aesthetic to the build that you're making. Then we go back and we look and review again and see that I didn't like how the slope at the nose was looking, so I fixed that up, and I go back around with those slabs to kind of round everything out. Then we start working here on the spine, making sure to get it all the way through the skull to have that connection and that fluidity between the aspects. Here I'm just doing with like a cross-shaped spine that I'll add stairs and slabs to later, and giving it a bit of an angle so that we can start to make it go straight down a bit later on. From there, I go back to working on the little spines that I was making, as well as the bottom of the skull. I wanted to make it a little bit more dramatic with its angles, so we work on spreading that out and just really checking to make sure that everything's the way we want it to be. It's a lot of experimentation here. From there, we just keep working at it and realize that some of the shape looks a bit weird, doesn't look very smooth, and so we go in and we start working on fixing that with some stairs, some slabs, and a bit more layering of the blocks to give it a little bit more roundness and a little bit more fluidity between the sides. Now we're working on making the horns for it. We wanted to have 3 main horns for this skull, this kind of dragon skull. You want those to be on the 2 sides, and you want them to kind of come off of the side, not so much the top. It just kind of emphasizes the bone structure a bit more, so it's a good idea to start there. And then you make them as long as you need to and make a general line, and then you start adjusting it from there. So that could be adding thickness, stairs, slabs, making it longer, making it a little bit more pointy at the ends, connecting it into the side a little bit more, something along those lines. We're going to do the same sort of thing for this top spike, this 3rd spike here. We make our line, then we add some slabs and some thickness to it to start to develop the structure of it, and keep working with it until we get to a point where we like it. This one was a bit of a struggle because I couldn't quite decide how long I wanted it to be, if I wanted it to be really prominent or if I wanted it to be kind of short. So it took me a little bit of work to get it to look the way I wanted it to, but again, with that bit of experimentation, that trial and error, you eventually can tend to get it to where you are happy with it. And we just continue working with that, tweaking it, making that horn come out a little bit more into the nose area to try to get like a smooth line from the nose point all the way up the horn. And from there, I'm just reviewing it, checking everything, and then I believe we're going to do our second copy. No, it looks like instead we're actually decided to tweak the horn a little bit more here. Make it a little bit longer, a little bit thinner at the point, give it a bit more sharpness from it. Same with that middle one. I just thought they would look better with that added sharpness to them. A little bit more pointy, a little bit longer. Really helps define how the skull looks. You can really see it starting to come together here. Then it looks like I noticed there's a bit of an issue with the eye. It doesn't look quite right, so I work on smoothing it out a little bit, making the sides just a little bit thinner to smooth it out a little bit more. I noticed there's a hole there that I didn't fix, but that's alright. Mistakes happen, you can work with them. And here, now you can see we're doing our second copy. Same process, one corner and the other corner. I kind of screwed it up this first time here, so had to do it again, but wasn't quite thinking, I guess. But once you get it right, it'll really help, and you can really start to see the entire skull really coming together here at this point. And now we work a little bit more on the inside, trying to finish up the jawline kind of area, that opening. I wanted to lengthen it just a little bit more because it seemed just too small, too compact. We smooth out the bottom just a little bit more, make it a little bit more pointed and jagged rather, and then we move back to finishing up the spine here. Again, continuing with that cross shape to a sharp diagonal into that area where we start to have it going vertically rather than horizontally. And again, just including those stairs and slabs to smooth everything out to really make sure that it looks the way we want it to. It takes a lot of trial and error to get these things right, but I think that you'll find it comes really satisfying when you figure out how to do it for yourself. So I hope that this kind of process helps you with that. From here, we are just about done. I'm relatively satisfied with how everything turned out, and we're just doing some final tweaks here to really make sure that everything's the way we want it. With all of that, I hope this tutorial helped all you guys out. If you enjoyed, be sure to like and subscribe. Leave some comments if you have any tips, questions, or anything else that you want to leave a note about. With that, the last thing we have to add on here is the teeth, which took a little bit of trial and error to work on. I have done dripstone teeth in the past and liked them, but they didn't quite work out in this build, so you'll see me go back on that in just a second as we finish up this build to start using quartz stairs instead. And they all work out, it just really depends on the size and scale of the skull you're working on. And with that, we just have to put in those final stairs to finish everything up, just like I said. Just a little bit of work to kind of get the angles on them right. You don't want to make sure they're not touching each other too much from the top and bottom teeth. You want to make sure that they are just lined up with each other kind of well. And it does take a little bit of trial and error with these, just like everything else in the skull, to really get them to a way that you kind of are happy with and that you like. And once you've done that, you can always do something different on the other side, or you can just do the typical copy and paste like we're doing here with World Edit. And that is just about the last thing. There might be some final tweaks you want to do here, but all in all, that is the end of this tutorial. I hope you enjoyed. Again, like and subscribe if you did, and we'll see you in the next video. Thank you for joining.